So I'd like to bring up our luncheon speaker today, speaking to us about the qualities and habits of transformational leaders and how to develop them to advance your career. This is Jen Sudduth. She is the managing partner of Sudduth Search. And as the founder and managing partner, she has over 2 decades of experience in executive search, working for clients within the technology, industrial, and manufacturing industries. She's completed assignments across all roles and management levels. And please give your attention and a big round of applause for Miss Jen Sudduth, please.
Good afternoon. How are you? I am going to keep this hopefully fun and lighthearted and hopefully short, so y'all can get back to talking and getting to know each other, because that's what this is all about, is the networking. So I promise. My only ask is that if I crack a joke, I need everybody to laugh. And if you don't know what the joke was, just go ahead and laugh, because that'll give me a little bit of motivation and I can keep going. So I am going to be talking about transformational leadership and transformational leaders specifically. And what I mean by that is executives that drive change and growth. So when we're brought in, it's usually for growth, but transformation can be any kind of change. It could be a lot of what we heard about today. How do we be more inclusive? How do we change our culture? Sometimes it can be business focused. How do we change where we're targeting our sales? How do we change our name for some of us? All of those kind of changes, these are the type of leaders that drive that. And that's what we specialize in. You're going to suffer through about a 30-second commercial real quick, because I do think it's very relevant to what I'm talking about today. So I do own Sudduth Search. We are a retained executive search firm. Usually when I say that, people glaze over because they don't know what that means. What that means is that we are retained like a retained lawyer to come in and fill leadership positions. I typically do vice president and C-level, and then I have a team that does middle management. But the types of clients that we work with are usually very fast growth. They're usually investor-backed, and they are looking to us to find the kind of talent that's going to make change, make growth happen in their companies. One of our clients, actually they're in the paper today, they are in the Fortune under 40, the CEO and the co-founders are, if you like doing research. They are at under $5 million right now. They raised $200 million in capital, 200, and they're expected to be at $50 million in about 2.5 years. So that is exponentially fast growth, and we're bringing in the leaders that help make that happen. So I've been doing this 22 years, so I've been interviewing these types of leaders all day, every day, most days, that have this kind of just phenomenal success. And so what I'm going to talk about today is what I have seen as attributes, characteristics, things that they do that are pretty consistent across the board, across all of them. And hopefully it's relevant to you. I mean, even if you don't aspire to be a C-level leader, I think a lot of these attributes are what help us advance our career. So, going to get started. All right, the first one, and you're probably going to roll your eyes, but I'm still going to say it, is confidence. And I think a lot of that confidence with these folks is very innate, but I also think a lot of it comes from having courage. And you've heard a lot about courage last 2 days, but I think it is absolutely true. These folks, they plow through. They look at all of their options and they dare to make decisions. I love getting to know them, because what I'm doing is getting to know what makes them tick, and what makes, and if they know what they want, they know what they're good at, and they know what they're not good at. Sorry. Recently, one of our COOs, and he was actually one of the under 40 COOs, that I mentioned earlier, he called one of my colleagues in the evening, of course. We had about 4 different offers going out with his company, and so they wanted to talk through it. And after a long time talking back and forth, he said, "Leah, what do you think we should do?" And so she said, "This is what I think we should do." And she gave him her opinion. She said, what do you think we should do? And he's like, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. So in my opinion, strong, successful leaders, they admit when they don't know something. They admit when they need help, and then they plow forward and make a decision. The next day, you would have never known that that man had admitted that he did not know what he did not know. Made decisions, made the offers, and closed those deals. The second one, so I'm not going to give you this one, I'm going to ask you a question. According to research conducted by Ernst & Young, I think there's a few EY people here, there's one trait that is shared by a disproportionately high number of female executives. You may have a guess as to what that might be. What's that? Oh, you said they're white? Oh, that's probably true, but it's very unfortunate. And hopefully we're making changes to that this week. But that is not what my answer was. Over 90% of women CEOs are currently athletes, or they were athletes. Isn't that interesting? So raise your hand. How many of you are athletes or consider yourself athletic, sporty, like to work out? I think it's critical. Sporty, was that not a good word? So not only over 90% of the women are athletic, but over 54% of them played sports in college. So they took it to another level. And then if you look at men and women combined, it's over 95%. So there is an irrefutable correlation between athleticism and business success. And I believe there's a huge, and I know there's probably some proponents of this, the mind-body connection. If your body is healthy, then your mind can do hard things. And I think that is absolutely a truth. The third thing I notice with these successful leaders, and we've talked about this a lot too this week, is authenticity and collaboration. I put these two together because I think they are directly correlated. Exceptional leaders are self-aware. They know what makes them tick. I jumped ahead a minute ago. They know what they're good at. They know what they're not good at. And they're not intimidated by other people who are highly intelligent or other people that are high performers. And that's my opinion. I feel like when I'm doing an interview with a C-level executive, if they're talking over me or they're talking more than me, quite frankly, it's a red flag for me because I find that the most successful executives are very collaborative in their communication, and they're humble as well. And then the fourth one I think should almost be number one, and we talked about this as well, is purposeful. Yes, they make quick decisions. Yes, they can do things well, but they are always prepared. And they want to drive the process. Because they want to know what's next. I get constantly when I'm recruiting, especially C-level, they're trying to manage me. And they're always like, what's next, Jen? And I got a text this morning. When's my next interview? What are we doing? Blah, blah, blah. And if you ask my husband, that is not an easy thing to do as far as managing me. He actually says if you want to get me to do something, you got to tell me not to do it. But it is something I look for. I think it's important. These folks are in charge, and they want to drive things forward. And so that translates into trying to drive the process of recruiting. So preparation, I also think, is critical for all levels. I recently hired a very seasoned recruiter for our team. You've probably met her, Hazel Casu. And this woman has 20-something years of experience, same as me. And we had a meeting with a very important client that we've done maybe 6 searches for. And she was on that search, and she sent me she said, I wanted to see if you wanted to see my notes before our weekly call. Okay, this is a woman that could probably walk into that meeting and just wing it and know what she was doing. But she had 2 pages of preparation notes. And I went, this is why I hired her. Because that kind of preparation, in my opinion, is what executives do. They prepare, they know what they're going to say, they know what their talking points are going to be. If you're a junior person, and this is, I notice this a lot when I'm in board meetings and so forth, do you read the agenda beforehand? Do you look to see what they're going to talk about? Is there data on there that you could analyze, that you could really research and bring to the table for some of the senior folks that maybe don't have time to do that? I think all of those things are critical, that you be prepared. Even if you're not the most senior person in the room, I think there's things you can do to really shine and show what you're capable of. And then this one I think is maybe the hardest for women. Own your own time. C-level executives, and maybe it's because they're busy, but it's very hard for me to manage them when they're in the process. Their job is to own their time. Their job is to be a thought leader, and that's true for any kind of leader in any company, mid-level or senior or CEO. Your job is to be the thought leader. Your job is to be strategic and think ahead of the other people. And so you've got to own your time, and you've got to budget your time to do that. I think women struggle with this, especially. I know I do. I want to help everyone that comes to me that wants a job. I wish I could. A lot of people want to fix everyone, women especially. They want to help you solve your problem. They want to include everyone. These are all wonderful things, and you should be selective and do those things. But there's not enough hours in the day. If you are advancing your career and you want to be a leader, you've got to own your time. Determine your priorities, your goals, and stick to them. And here's the hardest part. Don't apologize when someone gets angry with you because they want to prioritize your time. Especially like PTA. Sorry, did I go there? I just can't do it all. And so sometimes you have to draw the line. All right, and the last one is tenacity. This is also something that is probably most people in this room have. But every C-level executive I interview is very tenacious and driven. When I took a step out of recruiting for about 4 or 5 years when I had a baby and didn't want to work both coasts, and worked for a management consulting firm. And it was kind of like a mini Deloitte. It was founded by 2 Deloitte employees. And almost all of our clients were oil and gas. And at this time, this was a time when oil and gas prices just plummeted. And so a lot of the employees, including me probably, I was director of talent, we were kind of whispering and we were nervous and what are we going to do? All our eggs are in this basket. But the CEO did not. He pulled us into a conference room within a couple of days. He did not give us a rah-rah speech. He said, how are we going to diversify? How are we going to leverage some of the non-oil and gas clients for the short term to be able to make this work? And we did. We got an airline client within about 3 months. We already had one, so it was easier to go that direction. We got another one 2 years later, obviously pre-COVID, because that was a good move then. But it worked. And I think what I remember about that is that he focused us and then he drove us to that goal. And it worked. They actually ended up selling a couple of years later to Accenture. All right, I'm finished with that. Now I'm going to talk about how can you gain some of those attributes. The number one thing that I would say, and it's 3 words, is do hard things. And I'm actually going to call myself out on this one because I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I think I said the words to my husband this morning, remind me to never speak in public again. It makes me uncomfortable. It's so hard. But humans we're wired naturally. We want to do things that are comfortable. We want to do things that feel natural, that are easy. But your brain develops the most when you do hard things, like speak. A few years ago, there was a study, and it was in the Journal of Gerontology, if you can believe that, but it talked about what the importance of doing hard things was. And so they had 2 different groups. And it was 60 to 90-year-olds, so senior folks, excuse me, my mom would be offended if I called her elderly, senior folks. And they had one group doing more difficult things like digital photography and working on a computer and quilting. And then they had another group that listened to music and went to events, nothing too pressing. And then after 3 months, they evaluated their brain. And basically, the productive engagement group with the photography and the computers showed significant improvement compared to the other. As a matter of fact, their memory was very close to a 40-year-old, just from doing things that were hard. And this kind of changed the way I looked at things. You know, negotiations and recruiting are very hard because you want the person to be happy. You want the client to be happy. You're trying to find that balance, and people get tense, and it's hard. And it kind of changed the way I thought about those things. I thought, you know, the more I do that is hard, the better I'm going to be at what I'm doing. And so I would encourage you to find things that push you outside of your comfort zone. Is there a project you could volunteer? Now, don't get caught up in the non-payable tasks that women often do, but is there a project that you feel like could advance yourself? Even if you're the most junior person on the team, you're going to learn something. It's going to push you outside of your comfort zone. Is there an issue that needs resolved? I have to tell you, when I was director of talent, if someone saw an issue, whether it's bias during our interview process, whether it's someone's becoming unengaged and we need to bring in this certain group, and they came to me with a resolution, which did happen because I worked with management consulting, so they always wanted to solve things. That was just huge for me. I truly appreciated that. So if there's something that needs a resolution, could you work on that and present it? Joining a nonprofit board, which is also very challenging, or just running a marathon or something that's personally challenging for you. The number 2 is what we talked about before, is getting healthy, or get healthy. Be healthy if you're already there. And I'm not talking about diet. My girlfriend and I have a rule that we are not allowed to talk about our diets for the first 15 minutes of our conversations because we're wasting brain cells. However, there is a definite connection between your brain and body, and you do, in my opinion, need to maintain that so that you can do hard things. I had a gym coach. I know a few people that live in Oak Forest, and I had a gym coach at Yellow Rose out there, and he's phenomenal. And he was saying, you know, instead of thinking about exercise as 1, 2, 3, you're rating yourself. How about good, better, best? So if I walk 3 times, that's good. If I walk 3 times and go to the gym once, that's better. Best is walk 3 times, go to the gym 3 times, or something to that effect. So you're not losing, you're not failing if you just achieve the bottom rung, but you're setting a floor, basically, and you're not committing yourself to failure at that point. All right, in the same vein, prioritize yourself. Help yourself. I am a huge advocate for business coaching. Are there any coaches out there? I know there was one here yesterday. And there's a reason for that. I didn't used to think that, but one of my dear friends went to the Rice coaching certification program, and she used me as her guinea pig. And so for about 3 months, I went to her and did business coaching sessions. And it was actually when I was launching my own business about 5 years ago. And it was life-changing. I'm not going to joke. It's not therapy. They're not going to talk about your childhood problems. But what they are going to talk about is, it's almost like they're holding a flashlight and they're saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Maybe we need to not think about that, not focus on that, not think about it, but focus on it. They're like a guide for you. And what it did for me is it got me outside of my own brain. As an entrepreneur, was kind of working by myself. Even when I was with a bigger firm, in the headhunting world, you kind of work by yourself. It was a great way for me to step outside of myself and examine and say, which direction do I want to go? What am I doing well? What am I not doing well? And like I said, it was life-changing. We did decide, she and I, that drinking wine and having coaching sessions were not effective, so I changed. I no longer have my best friend as my coach, and I really, really still advocate for that. If you can't afford a coach, because they're not always cheap, coach yourself. Read books. I used to be adamantly against self-help books. I was wrong. When I started my business, I decided I needed to learn from others who had done something similar. I needed to learn more about myself, and started reading a lot of books. The good thing about books is if you don't like it, stop reading. And so find one that resonates. Yeah, I don't know, if you have Goodreads, you got books. I have a column that says books I stopped reading. So find books that you like, that resonate with you. And I do encourage you to get past like 3 or 4 chapters, because otherwise sometimes they're a little dry. But read books, and I read probably 4 or 5 that I think had a huge impact on me. I'm happy to share those later. The last one, see, you're about to get back to your networking. The last one, and I think this is something we've talked about this week as well, and I heard a panel last week with another organization, I think it was lawyers mostly, and they brought this up, and I couldn't agree more. Don't undervalue yourself and what you bring to the table. I was interviewing a woman it was a director of investor relations for a private equity firm, and I was blown away. I was so excited because I was like, oh, okay, good. She's the one. I mean, Ivy League, she was just phenomenal. At the end of the interview, I didn't ask, she offered. She said, I'm making this salary, but I'm okay with a lateral move. I said to her, don't ever say those words again. You know how many times I've heard men say that? 0. I hear women say it all the time. Now, there's reasons for you to take a lateral move, and I understand that. Commute, boss, whatever. But don't start the negotiation there. You bring value. You are important. You wouldn't be at the table. You wouldn't be here if someone didn't value you enough to say, I want you to get better and go to a conference where you can learn. And I'm okay with you missing 2 days of work. So you bring a lot of value to your company, and trust that and know that and live that. That sums it up. So I'm going to let you go back to networking. Enjoy your career journey. It is a journey, and it needs to be fun. But be brave, be healthy, be prepared, and have fun. Thank you.